this is a little history of my 2003 350Z Track Edition. I bought the car in 2005. It was used with about, I think it had about 20,000 miles, 19,000 miles or something on it like that. It was the newest car I'd ever bought. I had saved up a good chunk of change for it and got it off the lot, and it was a really fun car for a long time. I dailied it for a very long time, all the way up until about 2008 or so. But this is the oldest photo I have of it. Didn't really take a whole lot of photos back then. This is when I lived in Norfolk, Virginia. And then this is the next oldest picture. The next picture I have of it, which would have been 2008, it was after we did the Sorona body kit to it. And I drove it like that for a while too, to save up money before we went in for paint. We ended up shooting it with a fresh coat of Daytona blue. I really love that color. I love that color on the car when it was stock, and I wanted to keep it part of the car when we went to repaint the car. So we did fresh coats of Daytona blue all over everything, and then did a black pearl flame job down the car. And it looked like this for about a year or two. I think it was almost 3 years before we redid the paint on the front bumpers. But after we did that, it got the bug, and so we redid the interior, stripped the entire interior out of the car, and color changed a lot of components in there. Also did some stereo work and that type of stuff. So you can see here, this is where we changed the accent color from silver to the gold and blue. So everything got painted in the car. The bezels, the plastics, the handles, even the stereo components and things. You can see this is the gold we ended up going with. It's an aluminum gold, I believe is the color. And then you can see this is what some of the interior looked like once we did the first iteration. So the seats were done in leather and suede, and the center console, and then a lot of the under the hood pieces, as you can see there, the crossbar and the all the other stuff you've seen in some of the other videos under the hood. This was a car show in Pennsylvania somewhere. So from there we did the rear speaker enclosure, and I don't know why we decided it needed TVs. I mean, this is circa 2009, so I mean, come on, people, give me a little break. But yeah, so we did all of this custom at my buddy's house in his garage. Got some fleece from the store and some fiberglass resin, and went to town, and it came out really nice. I got a lot of questions on why you put TVs and stuff in the back, but at car shows we were sitting in the back and we would play videos and stuff, so it was kind of cool. But all custom things. We ended up getting the headliner done after that, and then you can see all the custom touches in the amp bay and everything. Had that TV for a while. It didn't work out. Subwoofers and TVs don't work out. This is when we went to the second part of the interior. We did the doors and everything, and wrapped the dash in suede and leather. Made the flames reverse imaged on the inside of the door panels. Really tied everything together. This is at one of the Ocean City car shows. This would have been 2011, 10 maybe, somewhere around then. And this is some more car show footage. This is when we had the Kinetics intake and all this stuff on the car. And then after that is when we started the swap. So this would have been 2010. So yeah, 2010 is when we started the swap. And we started tearing everything down. It was quite the project. I'd actually been in a small fender bender, and that's what kind of prompted this whole thing. That's why the fenders and everything are off. So the body shop did some work to it, and then we took it to the house, and we ripped the whole front end off the car. And you can see the body work right there. We had to fix the door a little bit from when the fender got pushed into it. But it was quite the ordeal. 2010, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing these swaps, and Sicky Performance was the only ones that were really doing it, and they happened to be right up the street from where I was living at the time. So we ended up on their doorstep and worked out a deal to get one of the kits, and we took it in the garage and started ripping it apart. And like I said, none of us knew what we were doing. So we just kind of started ripping the motor out. So we yanked it all out and made a big hole in the engine bay and started going from there. So we had gotten a 6-liter LS2 out of a GTO with a T56. I got it out of one of my local junkyards here. I think it cost me like $5,000 with the pedal and some of the harness and all that stuff all included. So it wasn't that bad of a deal, but you see we have the dash and everything ripped out because there was a lot of wiring that was being redone at the time. The car had so many electronics in it from all the shows and lights and subwoofers and CD players and everything. So it's crazy the amount of electronics in there. So we were cleaning up that while we were doing this. You can see the motor. This is when we were just getting it to do the test fitting and all of that. So we hadn't cleaned it up. We just threw the mounts on, bolted it all together, and the oil pan, which is really kind of a cool oil pan the way it was set up. And we stuffed it in the hole. Thing fit really well, and the only problem that I had with this whole setup from Sicky is, like I said, we got one of their prototype kits in the beginning when they were still, before they were really selling these things, and it didn't come with any instructions. And they said, well, give us a call if you have any issues. So of course, us being the manly men we were, we did everything without instructions, and the header clearance you can see on this side had plenty, but on the other side it was real tight and it was going to hit a little bit. And what we ended up doing, and you'll see here in a picture or two, is we ended up actually cutting and boxing the frame a little bit to make the clearance. And it turns out that we just had the motor mounts backwards. They're not exactly the same, but we didn't know. And so when I actually talked to them again, we told them to label them left and right, so I'm pretty sure they do that now. But we painted the engine bay nice Daytona blue. You can see where we Frenched in the that's actually where the braid line goes out to the fuel regulator we hid. There's that box I was telling you about that we did for the headers, and then you can see where the paint lines are where we didn't paint, where it was going to be hidden by the plastics and whatnot. That was a custom bracket we made to relocate the power steering reservoir. You can see the engine looks a little prettier now. We'd actually cleaned everything off and made it not look like an engine that came out of a 50,000 mile total. But looking good, got everything pretty, and then I believe from here we start putting everything together. So the motor was originally stock. We didn't do anything to the motor at first. 100% stock. We even left the stock clutch in it, and that turned out to be an issue. Later on we found the clutch, it looked good from looking down and in there, but it was actually, it had been glazed over, so as soon as you give it any power it would just let go. But the motor looked really good, and at this point the motor mounts are still backwards, and we didn't realize it until we put the cross or the front core support on, and then you could tell. But at this point we're just putting the big old headers on. They're 1 7/8" headers. Yeah, right here you can tell for sure. See how the intake throttle body is just off to the one side? That's when we figured it out. So we ended up having to swap the motor mounts, suspend it, and do it all that, because we'd gotten it pretty far together before we figured it out. But it wasn't the end of the world. You can see in this photo it's back to being in the center of the car. And then we had originally planned to run our coolant lines right there, but we ended up having to change that. Put a dual Walbro 255 pumps in this custom CJ unit that just drops right into the tank. It's really nice. I can upgrade to 450s if I ever need to, but I haven't run out of, running on regular gas, it's fine. And then we just did a Y to take it up to the all braid lines and everything. Did do the clutch conversion with the Sicky kit for the Willwood. Really made it nice. And then you can see this is after I'd taken it up to JE Performance, and they did a lot of the welding and got the initial tune on the car and got all the bugs out of it at that point, because I ended up actually leaving the country and was not able to finish the project in time, so they ended up finishing it for me. And then when I got back, we got it back into the body shop and finished it just in time to get it on the road and up to a car show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was one of the Autoramas up there. And this is at the day we left. I believe this picture right here is from. We had just got it done. We ended up putting a set of the cutouts, I think the QuickTime or whatever they are. And this is that show right there. We made it up to. And it was a really good show. I mean, people had not seen this. They'd seen it in magazines a couple of places. It was basically just the Sicky 350Z at that point. Because like I said, this is early 2010. Would have been February, I think, or March, I think is when that show is. It's early. But yeah, it stayed in this configuration for about a year and a half, and we were going to a car show in Carlisle and that was the same car show. We got the car in a magazine, and it was Performance and Sound. You'll see the cover here in a little bit. And it was at that show that we romped on it a little hard, and it developed a tick. And so that tick we let go for a little while until it became a knock. And as you can see here, the piston was clearancing itself on the head. It stretched the number 6 rod bolt, and the cylinder had come loose. So that meant we needed a whole new freshen up of the whole motor. So the whole motor came out, was bored stroked. So it's a 406 cubic inch, forged everything, H-rod, connecting rods. Basically upgraded the whole engine, tried to make it as bulletproof as possible. The only thing I didn't do was the heads, and that's one of the things I want to do now that we have the motor out again, is we had the heads CNC, or not CNC'd, but just regular ported, and the guy that did them didn't flow check them. He just said, oh yeah, they're good, and I had an issue. We cut a valve spring and some other stuff like that. So the heads are one thing I want to get done while the engine's back out of the car. The other issue is they never put spacers on the valve covers, and when they put these 1/8 rockers on, which are beautiful and nice, they actually clearance themselves on the covers. So I don't know if I'm gonna have to replace those or not while we're in there. We'll have to check that out. But that's about the history as far as that goes for the build. And then from here we've got some videos. The little bit of videos and cell phone footage I have of the car from before we started doing real videos. So here we have the first startup. This is the first start on the old tune. It was rough, like with a capital F, but it ran. And what I was trying to do in a really big hurry was get the car running and going to a memorial car show for one of my buddies that had died. And that's one of the few stickers that are on this car. There's a memorial for them in the back window. And so there were some corners cut and some late nights, but we got her to the show. We ended up doing alright at it. And this is when we actually were getting it tuned by the first tuner. This is the guy who built the engine. He was a very good engine builder for Fords and carbureted motors and big blocks and stuff like that. And LS motors were not his thing. So we originally ended up with a cam that was really too small for the car, and he was trying to tune it with a Diablo tuner instead of like HP tuners and stuff, and we had too small of injectors and that type of thing, so it didn't ever run right. But we ended up getting into a tuner that was specialized in LS motors. But we had to get to a tuner who knew what he was doing with it, and it made some power. But here we got a couple of runs we did at the drag strip. This car was never designed to be a drag car, and it's just totally not set up for it. It hates to come out of the hole. I think it's a 2.0 60 foot, but it's still a fun car to play with. We had a good time running it. The other trick I really like is how the car looks like a total racer. Has the big wing and the body kit and flames and all that, and then it fires up and blows so hard and goes by like that.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, so we ended up moving to the West Coast in 2013. And at that point, I had my son, and we were buying property. Z just kind of got put to the side. I had that issue with the valve spring that chopped. It was an exhaust valve spring. And at that point, I was concerned about, destroying the motor, so it kind of got put to, well, I'll fix it later, and I don't really want to drive it too much until I do. And then it kind of got harder and harder to justify spending the money on a toy like that. So, sat in a carport for a while out there, and of course that didn't do it any favors. And then it came back east with me in 2016, and it didn't have a home when we came back, so it sat on a trailer and got kind of rusty, like you guys saw in the video. And then I bought a big enclosed trailer for it, and it's been sitting in the enclosed ever since, which is better for it than when it was outside. But still, time has not been so nice to it. So we pulled the motor because I needed it for mock-up on the Subaru, and I knew if I pulled the motor I might actually do the work that needed to be done. So that is my plan. I plan on getting a nice set of Texas speedheads for it, and then once I do that, I want to sandblast and clean up some components and stuff that came off that weren't the best, fix some things that we did wrong. Originally, I'm toying with the idea of putting the Holley Terminator X on it because it's, you know, it's a T56. I don't need the big heavy or big Dominator and all that, but we'll see exactly which way I'm going to go with that. It has some paint work that needs to be fixed, as we know now, and I don't know exactly what I'm doing there, but at this point I would like to get the car running and get it back on the road. So it will be not in the next couple of months, but at some point in the future we will be getting this car back on the road. We will be doing some fun stuff with it. So I really appreciate you guys checking this out, and hopefully you stayed all the way through to learn a little bit about this car, and let me know in the comments what you guys think and what you guys like to see for this, if you'd like to see this car come back or stick with the Subaru or any of the other ones. But thank you guys very much, and we'll check you out on the next video.